is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome back in, everybody. A new episode of the One World Away podcast right here on KC Sports Network, brought to you by our good friends at Emprise Bank, your partner in possible, our partner in possible, and our partner here at One World Away. Extremely grateful for their support. Extremely grateful for you tuning in for another episode. We'll kick it off with Josh. How's it going, man?
Doing swell. It was quite a blustery Tuesday afternoon, but still here. Still here. Inclement weather in Chicago, too, apparently, so we didn't get any Royals tonight, but 2 games tomorrow, so very excited for that. Joel, how are you?
Surviving, not thriving might be the best way to describe it. Sickness has been running through my house for about the last week. I've been dodging it like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix until about 7 p.m. last night, so I think I'm on the other side of it now, possibly, I hope, but I have Pedialyte tonight instead of my normal beer or cocktail, so we'll make it through. I wasn't going to miss 2 weeks in a row, so I'm glad to be back.
I'm good. I guess just another fun day. Yeah, exactly. In my life, I knew nobody would ask, so I had to answer anyway. I haven't had anything other than water today. Not even a Diet Coke, which is one of my vices. Big Diet Coke guy. As producer Nick says, who asked in the chat, I did, Nick. Yeah, just a normal day for me. I drove out and met up with BJ Kissel and picked up some materials that we'll get to later in the show in a torrential downpour. It was like the only part of the day that was really, really bad rain, and I couldn't see anything, but of course picked that time to go out there and meet with him. But we had a lot of cover. There are a lot of stuff to cover, guys, on this podcast. There
and a lot of cover.
Yes, and a lot of cover. Good news, not so great news. We'll kick it off with a little bit of housekeeping, some stuff on downtown baseball. And I read the whole article today, which is a feat for me. Usually I just kind of catch whatever clip runs on Twitter and then talk about it. So Mike Hendricks on the KC Star, kind of, I don't want to say funny, that's probably not the word, but interesting thing about how the Chiefs and Royals spent nearly $6 million on the campaign for the new stadium and tax votes. It broke down to about $105 per yes vote and less than $2 per no, just because of how everything came out with the math. But there's an interesting little tidbit there. Brian Platt, Kansas City manager, was on KCUR on Monday, said the next downtown ballpark deal might not require a public vote at all, just full stop, and said that he still prefers that East Crossroads site. Ideally would keep the Jackson County government out of it, which was kind of a point of contention in the past several months, I guess year or so. I still think that we're a ways away. We talked last week, the quote from Marna Sherman about, okay, they're not going to come to the table with Jackson County again. They're not going to negotiate. This is done. Me and Josh kind of said, okay, let's pump the brakes on that, so to speak. They still could, and I think they should and probably will. This trends back in that direction. So again, try not to read too much into this. I'll kick it to Joel first. I think that personally this is decent news, and keeping those proposals separate to begin with made the most sense, I think. So this is a fairly logical kind of statement.
Yeah, it feels that way. I think we're heading in a direction where the Royals are still going to stay in. I think they're going to end up in downtown Kansas City at some point. Just a matter of when and where is really how it feels. I know that the vote got struck down at the beginning of the month, but that didn't really deter me from believing that the Royals will still be playing baseball in the Kansas City, Missouri area at some point moving forward. So I guess we'll see. It would be very interesting to see the public reaction if the Royals or if Kansas City decides, F it, we're going to do this anyway, and completely contradict the vote of the people, and how well that will go over will be very interesting to follow. And again, as a Kansas resident, not much I can say about it other than just, kind of viewing it from 10,000 feet. So, Josh, what do you think about this? Are you kind of in line with where I'm at?
This is potential to actually affect me down the road. As a Kansas City proper resident, but still a Clay County resident, I am now thrust into the ring to fight off or fight for some of these yes votes or no votes. So I'm curious to see down the road what this is going to look like. We already have a 1% income tax, and I'm tired of that already. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. So I'm curious to see what some kind of stadium vote and tax whatever from that will be incorporated. But I will have skin in the game in this one if that's the case.
As a Kansas resident and a Wyandotte County resident, to be more specific, I just don't want either team at the Legends. Like, I think it's cool, but I just don't want it. I don't want to deal with the traffic. I like going out to the Legends and not having to deal with it as is. They already put an apartment complex out there. I live relatively close to that. Just not a ton of interest in having a team out there. I don't think it's going to change my life as a whole. Those threats and kind of ideas, I don't think are going to come to fruition. I think the Royals end up playing downtown. I think they get what they want. It's just going to look different. I think the Chiefs probably get what they want too, and they're not going to Dallas. They're not leaving town. They're not going to anywhere in Texas.
Right.
But they kind of came up with, I'm not going to say it was a half-assed proposal, but it was just kind of rushed and a little bit cocky, and I just didn't like it. So they're going to both probably get what they want because that's usually how this stuff works, and that's kind of that. So trending in a positive direction, maybe one step at a time, but going to take a little bit. In more unfortunate news and developments, Whitey Herzog, Hall of Fame former MLB manager, has passed away at 92. That was announced on Tuesday. Inducted into the Hall of Fame as a manager back in 2010, played over 600 games as a player in big league ball, managed with 4 teams. He was with Texas for a while, the California Angels for just a handful of games, the Royals for 5 seasons, Cardinals for 11. Really famous for developing Whitey ball, which was based on small ball pitching, defense, base running, kind of reminiscent to the 2014-15 Kansas City Royals type teams that really played that fun to watch and easy to root for baseball. Whitey, he coached in Kansas City, 5-9 in the postseason. He won the pennant with the Cardinals 3 times, won World Series title. Unfortunate. Obviously thoughts and prayers with his family and support for them. But what a freaking career, Josh, right?
Yeah, still the highest win percentage as a manager in Royals history, right? Is that 574?
I believe so.
Is what I saw.
Sounds right.
Had just some dominant seasons as manager in the early to mid 70s, and still very much a lot of my managers to a lot of Royals fans out there. So R.I.P. to Whitey Herzog. Having a legacy that you have Whitey ball as a legacy is pretty cool, because that is more or less what Royals baseball has been known for, more or less over five decades. So really cool to be able to secure that legacy. But yeah, thoughts and prayers to his friends and family.
Yeah, 5 seasons with the Royals, 90 wins twice, 100 wins once in 1977, and only 85 in his final year in 79 before he went to the Cardinals. But I mean, that's a remarkable run, and it's interesting when you think about the Royals and the Cardinals, a historic rivalry in this area, and they have the commonality of having one of the best managers that's ever been. So, yep. Very kind of interesting dynamic there, especially considering he was on the receiving end of the 85 loss in the World Series. Dick Hauser took over the team for the Royals there. So very interesting that had to have been a little bit of an interesting moment there for him, but he had already gotten the World Series in 82. So it's not like the Royals prevented him from ever getting one. So, hell of a career, a hell of a baseball life for sure.
Yeah, putting a bow on a long-lasting legacy and career for Whitey Herzog. I was on this Baseball Reference page. They had a metric, and they called it steal second rate plus, and they had it for third base as well. And it was a league-adjusted steal rate for that base or whatever. And Whitey's was 157 in KC, so you're thinking like an OPS plus, like 100 would be your average, and then anything over that is above average. 136 in his career. So like Whitey ball was a real thing. The teams he played on, obviously personnel is going to play a part in that, and the players you have. But it was a consistent thing. And with the Royals specifically, 1.5 times above, or I guess 0.5 times above league average, they were stealing second. They were getting on base. They were trying to make stuff move. I found that interesting. I didn't know that there was a way to really track that, let alone the Baseball Reference took the time to do it and also adjusted it for those seasons. But just a living testament and kind of proof that it was a good thing, and really kind of ahead of its time. I think, like, you really hear now about the athleticism in baseball. That was something that back in the 1980s was kind of running rampant with him leading the charge. So R.I.P. to Whitey Herzog, and a long-lasting legacy, again, not just on big league baseball, but definitely the Royals as well. The Royals did play some games over the past week. They are rolling with their season, played the Astros and wrapped up that series, and then lost the series to the Mets, which I didn't necessarily expect, but that stuff is going to happen. They weren't going to win every series the rest of the year. There are plenty of players to shout out individually in performances, I think, that we'll get to over the course of the podcast, but I'll kick it back to Joel first. Overarching thought or thoughts on the past week of Royals baseball?
Watching them just pants the Astros for 3 straight days was a spectacular sight, especially in the last 2 games, just putting it on them. A 7-run inning I think it was the 7th inning of that game on the 10th, and then the day game where Hunter Brown had nothing. It did not matter what he was throwing. It was line drives up the middle for that entire first inning. Didn't even make it out of the first. 9 runs and 11 hits in that inning. Just spectacular. And I'll be honest, I wasn't watching at that point. I was working from home that day. And usually when I work from home, I take a little afternoon nap during my lunch break. That's my little moment. I woke up to my phone with the notifications were going crazy from you guys and a couple of my other Royals friends and the MLB app. And I saw 9-0. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is crazy. Well, what a day there. Brady Singer shoved as well. I thought he pitched pretty well. You go to the Mets series, and I think Friday was the first game that I felt like the Royals weren't competitive in all year. Like, even in the losses, they have been at least competitive or close to it. And it's been at least tight into the 9th inning. That wasn't the case. So, first time, but to be, at that point you were 12 games in or something like that, and that'd be the first time that you really see something like that. I think that's a good credit to this team. You bounce back on Saturday, and again, you just put it on the Mets, 11 runs, without Vinny, without MJ in the lineup because it was all righties against Minaya. Unfortunate loss on Sunday, but those types of losses are going to happen. Like I said, you're not going to lose every series. The Mets are not a great team, but they're not a slouch either. They have plenty of good players in there, and they couldn't get anything going against a pitcher I had never heard of, and that's how you lose that game. Like, I didn't know who Jose Buto was, and I'm sorry I wasn't familiar with this game, but
he was kind of shoving.
He did, yeah.
Change up was stupid.
Yeah, and then Nastrini making his big league debut yesterday for the White Sox. Again, dastardly changeup. Like, my goodness. But you still, again, you find a way to win that game, and you get back on, you have a tough series against the Mets, and you just take a little trip to Chicago, and you just beat the crap out of one of the worst teams.
The fucking White Sox. They're so... I don't want to completely cut you off, and this can be very, very quick. I did radio at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays. We're recording this. Shane Dennis posed me the question: do you think the White Sox are going to win 50 games? Do you see them finishing with 50 wins? Fangraphs thinks they're going to win 61. I don't think they get there, but I think they get above 50. It's hard to not win 50 games as a big league team. It's really hard to do.
Well, if you look,
they're terrible.
Lineups, Robert is going to be out for a while.
Yeah.
Hot is out.
Yeah.
Eloy is going to be in and out of the lineup all year because he's always hurt.
They freaking stink. I think they win 54, maybe.
They're going to win less.
It's going to be bad.
They're winning less than the Royals did last year. The Royals won 56 games. They're going to win less than that.
I was just looking at the Hayes record last year, and it's 50 wins. And I don't know. That was a very bad team. Minus 339 run differential.
That's my crazy. God.
What?
What?
That's more than 2 a game, right? If my math's just over 2 a game, oh my God.
Yeah. So we don't need to belabor the point of how bad the White Sox are, because we're not going to see them again for a couple months. But it's, they're one of those teams you just circle on the calendar of okay, we're going to go and sweep this series. We're just going to go knock this out. At a minimum, we're going to win it. And there have not been many wins or series wins that you can put in Sharpie for the Royals, pretty much any year for the last half decade. And we'll be able to at least have that now. So And I mean, and again, and I know one of you guys is going to bring up later, but Seth Lugo was fantastic yesterday. I don't think you can overstate how awesome he's been for this rotation. You're going to get theoretically, you're going to come back to Kansas City either 12-7 or 13-6, and that you're going to set up a series with Baltimore at home for a weekend series. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I just looked up. Okay, so the White Sox have played 16 games. They're at a minus 53 run differential.
God,
that is a
based on that
3.3. You're going to lose by 3.3 runs a game. The A's last year were 2.1.
They're not even out of April. Like, the vibes are going to get, like, if you're a White Sox fan and you stumble upon this podcast, I'm so sorry. Like, it's so bad. You know how sad your life has to be to tune in and watch that team actively play baseball? Like, if you make the conscious decision to watch that,
I think we actually can say yes.
This is like a special brand of bad.
But it's like a hilarious. It's like watching a bad movie. It's like watching the mid 2000s Royals.
Yeah. It's like watching Draft Day, basically.
All right. So this stat made its rounds last night. I just want to bring it up again because it's hysterical. The White Sox, through their first 16 games, have been shut out 6 times. That's only been done one other time in MLB history. The 1907 Brooklyn Super Boss.
That's not a real team. That's not a real team.
The old Super Boss.
They went 65-83 that year, led by, I'm trying to see if there's any like really good, funny, old-time baseball names. Oh, you got Elmer Stricklet, who hit $148 for him in 30 games. Whitey Alperman, who hit .233 with a .608 OPS. He had 2 runs, but I think that wasn't and I'm surprised it's only 2 because in that era, a ground rule double was a home run. That's how Babe Ruth got 714. So historically bad on the south side of Chicago.
The Super Boss.
They're terrible. Players like freaking Slapdick Williams are like comparable historically to. That's not a real player, by the way. I was betting so much money that Slap. Unless somebody had that nickname back then. I don't know. I need to Google trends the term Slapdick.
It's my MLB The Show creative player now.
Josh, any thoughts on the? We're off the rails. We're off the rails.
Not a lot to say. It is one thing that Joe kind of hit on that I've talked about too in the past was that how this team is rebounding off of losses. They haven't lost at 2 in a row since opening day and the day after. Every time they've lost, they've come back and usually put an absolute beat down on the team they played next. So that did not happen against the White Sox yesterday. Still pulled out the W. And that it's very good to see that this mental fortitude of this team does seem to lend itself to not extending losing streaks, which is a big part of baseball. So being able to stop the bleeding, keep it from becoming a bigger deal, that's a big thing. So hopefully that continues on. Cole Reagan's, again, so good. Still got it. Still kind of ran into a buzzsaw with that who's what's its name on the Mets that debuted and we never heard of. But still a very good game from Cole Reagan's. Wish the offense was a little bit more consistent, but they were going to come down to earth one way or the other.
Yep.
So hopefully this is just a water finding its level type of thing, and they're back in the saddle. So I'm curious to see. They got to get these wins against these White Sox because that schedule coming up is not very fun.
Yep.
Did you see Vinny's quote after the game yesterday when Joel Goldberg asked him about what was it about this team to bounce back, from a loss? And he said, "There's no bouncing back. We're a good team."
Yeah.
This is just what we did. It was a great quote. And he didn't have to think about it. He goes, "There's no bouncing back. We're just a good team. We're going to go out every day and we're going to find a way to win." Yeah. And I love that.
Love it.
They're going to have to try to find a way to win twice on Wednesday because their Tuesday game against the White Sox got postponed due to rain. It was David Lesky of Inside the Crown, who does great work, by the way. You're robbing yourself if you're not watching reading his content. He tweeted that they both had an off day Thursday, so they could have just played a makeup game, and that's not going to happen. They're going to doubleheader it on Wednesday, which is fine. The Royals need to get, I think, at least one of those. That mental fortitude Josh talked about is going to be tested. If they get both, massive success, not only for the series, but for the day as well. Quick injury updates before we take a break here. Salvador Perez had, I think it was not, they didn't give it a grade. They just referred to it as a mild groin strain. He tweeted that he'd be back on Tuesday. Obviously, they didn't play, but he was going to be available off the bench, so that makes me think maybe he's available off the bench full day Wednesday for both games, possibly returns behind the plate on Thursday, or I guess that'd be Friday. So stars are aligning here for a this week return for Salvador Perez. I think he's going to keep pushing. That's how he is. He's going to avoid the injured list. I think that the Royals are wise to let him get a little bit of rest because it's April 16th and they can't afford to have him go on the shelf or aggravate it. But I do think that it's not going to be a long-term thing whatsoever. And that's been backed up by, MRI and the treatment plan.
It's going to be interesting with a doubleheader tomorrow. They're not going to make Freddie Fermin catch both games. And I know Logan Porter is on the taxi squad, so maybe he gets elevated as the 26th man and he gets, or 27th for this game. So that may be something to monitor tomorrow as well.
Yeah. Yep. Unless they just made him catch both games, but I mean that's not going to happen. It's
not going to happen.
That'd be pretty cruel if they were like, "Hey, dude, go out there and get this."
The Brooklyn Super Balls would make him do that, but
Super Balls, definitely. That's classic Super Balls. One quick thing, kind of related to that, and Jordan, you kind of mentioned it, that they could play the game on Thursday. After, starting on Friday, they don't have an off day till May 2nd. So I'm wondering if they'll protect that Thursday
that makes
game
sense,
or that Thursday day off. I bet that is protection. And again, that's not necessarily how you want to enter a stretch of the Orioles, the Blue Jays, the Tigers, the Blue Jays, the Rangers, the Brewers. Not necessarily how you want to enter that stretch. So, like I said, there's some meat and potatoes coming to town over the next few weeks, and we're going to need some days of rest, I think, as much as we can get them.
Yep. Michael Massey not getting a ton of rest. He's trying to work his way back into the lineup. Went with Omaha or going with Omaha on their road trip. The team wants to basically just keep getting in plate appearances every day while they can, ensure that he's 100% ready to go and hit the ground running. So, again, there's no definite timeline. This is right around when people expected Michael Massey to be back. I don't think it's going to bleed into the month of May. But it's not going to happen this White Sox series. I think it makes sense later this week, next week sometime, Michael Massey come back up, get that pretty much every day second base starting job. I don't want to say every single game, but he'll get the chance to pick up where he left off in spring training at the end of last season as well. So that's all I think from an injury standpoint. We'll have some minor league stuff coming up later on, but unless I'm missing something, that's all for big league guys, right?
Depends on how you do Austin Cox.
Yep, true that. So we will cover Austin Cox coming up at not the end of the show, but close to it. We're going to take a quick break because we hit a lot right off the bat, and then we're going to come back and hit the ground running even harder. So we'll be right back.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
Welcome back in One We're Away podcast. Jordan Foote, Josh Keiser, Joel Penfield. We are extremely grateful for you guys tuning in, as well as Emprise Bank for making this possible here at KC Sports Network, and extremely grateful for one more group that we'll talk about at the end of the show. So let's do our player breakdowns, hitter and pitcher, the way it is in the document, and I don't think this is always the order I followed, but just how it's lined up in my head today. We'll go Josh, then Joel, then I'll round it out. Josh, you've got some heavy hitters right off the bat. I guess not literally because of recent events with one guy, but you know what I mean. I want to hear about Maikel Garcia and then your pitcher breakdown as well.
Yeah, it's appropriate that we're leading off with Maikel Garcia in his rough week. 2 for 24 since the last time we talked, with 3 walks and 8 strikeouts. Not necessarily something you want to see from Maikel Garcia. Not hitting the ball well, as you can tell by that. Just 1 barrel in the 27 plate appearances over this last week. And prior to that, 7 barrels within his first 49 plate appearances. So that's like a 14.2% down to 3.7% barrel rate. So not what you want to see from Michael Garcia, but it's not all bad news. The bad news is, the good news is he's still not really chasing balls, so that's also good. He always had a really good eye, so his 15.4% chase rate is not really that discouraging. He's still doing well in that department. He's getting the second highest zone percentage since, so pitchers are actually throwing him down the pipe, which is good. He'll actually eventually hit those. Still drew the 3 walks and still two stolen bases, so that's also very good. Still valuable to this lineup. But the bad news is just a 52.2% zone contact rate, which is real bad. I'd look to see him get maybe swing a little bit more, be a little more aggressive, and get back to that swinging rate that he had there prior to the drop-off. So I'm curious to see how he rebounds. This is kind of the problem he had at the end of the last season that kind of dropped him a little bit. So we'll see him rebound and see where it goes from there. But I got still faith in Michael Garcia to rebound from that. You guys got any qualms with that?
No, it feels very similar to the slump that Vinny Pasquantino was in early in the year. Yep. Like, he was not striking out a ton. He's taking walks. He's making it's a quality of contact issue. And not like a bigger, I don't think there's bigger concerns other than he just needs to see some balls fall and see some of those hard hit balls like actually land. Because some of those, he's driving the ball and he's hitting it right at people. And so that's some of the problem too. And he's a little too pull happy at times, I think. He wants to get to some of that pull power that he's developed. But by doing that, he's sacrificing some of the quality of contact. So I'll be curious how he adjusts. And I know he will. He's too good of a hitter to slump like this for too long. And if he gets going again, it's going to allow Bobby to see more pitches in the zone. Because I think Bobby is he's kind of dipped a little bit. He's still awesome and still playing well, but he is not playing at the level he was at the beginning of last week once Michael started to slide a little bit. So just something to monitor, but I'm not overly concerned about Michael Garcia.
Nah, not at all. There's nobody better. Well, there might be one player better, but like they're not moving him off of 2-hole for the leadoff spot than Michael Garcia. He's going to be there. I like the profile still. He's just the living embodiment right now of the small sample size stuff that we talked about a couple weeks ago. We were like, oh my God, Michael Garcia is a power hitter. Now he's a slugger and he's fixed. He's a superstar. Now, not really. Like, he's coming back down to earth in a big way. He'll average out. He'll be fine. But the question does remain, is he the guy that kind of slumped a little bit last season and scuffled, or the one that hit the ground running to start off? That question hasn't been answered yet, and I think that the full season he will. But my panic level with him is like at a 2.5. Like, I'm not too worried about him yet. Let's give it another few weeks and then see if he bounces back.
Still young players. So that's the key to those young players is how do you respond to the game changing and adapting to what they know is your strength. So learning curve there. The other one is Angel Zerpa. I wanted to kind of look at his usage and see what his role is, because I thought it was pretty interesting coming into the year that he was kind of almost a given in that bullpen. We all kind of figured he was still in the mix for the starting rotation a little bit, but seemed like Hugh was pretty adamant that he'd be a fixture in the bullpen, and he has been. And he's not really been used as a multi-inning reliever either. He's basically been used last week was a lot of mop-up duty just because that was the context of the game. So he saw a lot of lefties. He saw some righties. And over the year, there's been a definite split between how successful he is against righties as he is lefties. And that's been his thing his whole career. He has not pitched very well against righties, and he's been really, really good against lefties. For his career so far, he's a 190, 232, 270 with a 273 FIP against lefties. Very, very good. A 520 FIP against righties. So if they're going to deploy him as a lefty matchup guy like they did in the Astros game where you saw, I think it was a righty, and then it was John Singleton and then Kyle Tucker, and then struck out those two lefties after like maybe one pitch to the righty, it was a very solid outing for him. He did leave a changeup over the plate for Pete Alonso to mash a very long ways again in that Mets series. But it's interesting to see what they're going to do with Zerpa moving forward. But if he's a left-handed specialist, I'm in. He seems to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that the specialist part of it almost justifies the bullpen usage as opposed to making him go through an order multiple times. And the durability questions a little bit. And like, he's always kind of had that like dog mentality that you can't always measure, but just you watch a guy and you're like, okay, this guy can compete. He can run it up when he needs to. That's going to play well out of the bullpen. And like, if Alec Marsh kind of falls down to where he has occasionally in the past, in his brief big league career, the Royals have options to replace him. They could stretch out Matt Sauer and put him in the rotation. They could put Zerpa there. They could bring Daniel Lynch up. They could have John Bolin do it.
Say the name. There's a name you're not saying.
They could put Jordan Lyles back.
That's the name.
Okay, yeah,
that's his name.
They could always put Voldemort back in the rotation if need be. They've got options, man. Like, it's not, this organization is very deep. So again, the panic meter, I don't think there's a reason to. With Zerpa, I think the intriguing meter is like a 6 or 7. Like, I'm watching and I'm like, okay, this guy's a contributor on a big league team potentially, and that's coming into the year. I was like, I had no clue what to think about him, and now I'm kind of, with some assistance from Josh, of course, just now, kind of getting a clearer path to that.
And he's handled some high leverage situations as well.
Sure.
Like, it's not just...
Hey, wasn't it?
Yeah. He handled the 8th inning, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think they were going to use him that way. I kind of thought he would be toward the back or like the front end, I guess, of the Jordan Lyles, Matt Sauer, inning a third guys. But they found a way. They clearly trust him because they'll throw him out there in the 7th or 8th inning of a close game, and he shuts it down. Like, it's very impressive. I think that goes back to what Jordan said about the kind of the dog. And like, that's something I've always loved about him, is that he is not afraid to throw his shit in the zone and go, I'm going to put it past you, or I'm going to get a ground ball because of this bowling ball sinker that I throw. So he and Schreiber, I think, kind of intertwine a little bit in that regard, where they're just, hey, sure, I have some strikeout stuff, but I'm going to see if I can get a 1-pitch ground out right here with this sinker. And you can kind of match up lefty-righty there. I think they trust him a little more than Will Smith in these situations too. So I think there's a lot to like with what he brings, and I'll be curious how his role evolves as the season goes. But I think early returns are solid and justify putting him in the bullpen to start the year almost no questions asked.
Yep. Joel, what do you got? You have literally a heavy hitter that has been going crazy at the plate, and we'll talk about him several more times on this podcast.
Oh, I'm sure. So, full disclosure, I had to tap out late, like maybe an hour and a half before we recorded last week, and I had Benny Pasquantino as my hitter to discuss, and basically
for different context,
with entirely different context, entirely. But the point of what I was going to say was similar to what I talked about with Michael Garcia. Like, the numbers on the surface looked awful, but at that point, he was still walking more than he was striking out. The zone contact rate was around 92%, and his swinging strike rate was the lowest of his career. It was like 4.5%. So, like, okay, it's a quality of contact issue. Clearly, he's getting his timing back. There's some approach things, and there's maybe a little bit of pressing, when you see him chasing some changeups out of the zone and fastballs just slightly out. Well, that's just not who he is. But I know that he was just trying to make stuff happen. So once he finds the barrel a couple of times and starts making more quality contact, the numbers were going to go up. Like, he's too good of a hitter to slump for that long. And then the very next day, he goes nuclear against the Astros, 3 for 5, 5 RBIs and a home run. And it's just continued. And going into the game on Wednesday, his weighted runs created plus on the year was -2. And so 2% less than league average. Now, on recording on Tuesday, his weighted runs created plus is now 131. Like, it has happened that fast. He's raised his slash line to 255, 344, 473. He's at the .4 F4 after being one of the worst players in baseball this time last week. And now his walk rate is up and his strikeout rate is down. He's not even striking out 10% of the time, and the ISO is up to 218. So he has completely turned his season around in a week. I think this is sustainable. He's hitting the ball harder now, and I know that the guys from Royals Weekly talked about, he's making more contact. He's turned it around, but he's not, like, the exit velocities are still a little concerning, and he hit a ball, the home run was like 108 miles an hour, and the double was almost 110. So he finds the barrel with more regularity. You're talking about the guy that I talked about preseason, which is that's an all-star first baseman and a absolute force in the middle of the order that's going to help protect Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvi as well. So basically, all of this to say, long way to get here. Vinny's the hitter that we thought he was going to be, and it's just now starting to kind of come to fruition.
I mean, it's always a what if thing that happens with baseball teams, but what if Bobby and Vinny and Salvi and MJ and all these guys are hitting at the same time? We've had some slumps there. Vinny took his turn. Michael's taking his turn now. MJ's kind of fallen off a little bit. But what happens to this lineup if they all start hitting at the same time? You have a 1 through 5 that is very, very good.
And I think you even throw Nelly in there.
Nelly in there had a great run. Yeah, he's striking out a little bit now, but he's still hitting the crap out of the ball with ease.
What if Michael Massey comes back and actually produces late, like at the bottom of the order? That's
And then Isbell has had a good start. He fell off as well, but I mean, there's guys. This is a lineup.
Yeah, like this is not just Bobby Witt Jr. and a bunch of Jags. Like and even if a guy has an off night, there's usually not 1 through 9 off for the entire night, right? Like there's usually a couple guys that are able to kind of bring water to its level, and they're able to kind of to contribute, get on base, and then hope a couple other guys contribute. And that's what happened last night, ultimately in the game against Chicago, with Vinny kind of leading the charge. When they have all of these guys on, especially at the top of the lineup, this lineup fornicates. It is really, really good. and now that you have your 3-hitter that you kept in the 3-hole the entire time, they didn't even think about moving him down in the lineup. He stayed there. So they obviously knew and believed that this was what it's going to be, and it's good to see. Obviously super important for if this team is what we think it could be.
Yep.
Cole Reagans, Joel, you got some interesting observations on him?
Shopping from the top shelf this week, Joel.
Yeah.
That's what you get. Hey, that's what you get for getting into Google Doc early and taking your claim.
There's a first time for everything, I'll tell you that.
But somehow we've gone 3 weeks of the regular season on this podcast without really talking about Cole Reagans a ton. And he had one awesome start and one start that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I was still very impressed with the start against Houston. Now, the surface numbers are like 5, you think about it and you're like, Joel, he went 5 innings, you have 10 hits, 3 runs, only 5 strikeouts. How often have we seen the best pitcher on the Royals not make it through 5 in that particular game?
Yeah.
The fact that he was an awful lot. The fact that he was able to get out there in the 5th inning and gut it out, get a scoreless inning, save the bullpen, and then you ultimately win that game because you didn't have to go to the bullpen in the 5th, which saved James McArthur for the 9th and the 10th inning. That's how you win ball games. So the fact he was able to get there, to me, was super impressive because he didn't have his stuff that night. The Astros were hitting everything. It didn't matter. Early count, late count. He didn't have the strikeout stuff, only basically 1 strikeout an inning. So to gut that out, to me, it says a lot about him as a pitcher. And then he was ridiculous against the Mets. And it sucks that the Royals haven't been able to get him a lot of run support in these games where he's pitched really well. Mm-hmm. But 8 strikeouts, only 1 walk in 6 innings. He's got 29 strikeouts to 7 walks on the year. If he keeps that number, nearly 4-1, that'll work for me because the strikeout number is going to be ridiculous. He's just he is everything that the Royals need at the top of the rotation, and he's continued to prove that. He has matched the hype that he came into the year with, and now it's showing in the betting odds. And I know betting odds aren't everything, but he's got the 3rd best odds to win the Cy Young in the American League right now. With it's Corbin Burns at I think plus 550, and then Tariq Skubal at plus 600. And then it's Cole Reagans, it's plus 700, 7-1. And I think he's going to be able to stick around.
Favorite, right?
And he came in and he was around, I think, 20-1. It was similar to Bobby on the MVP side. Came in around 20, 22-1. So the fact that he jumped that fast tells me that there's some sharp money coming in on him that believes that he can sustain this and be that guy. And if you have a legit Cy Young candidate with what the rest of the rotation is giving you, it's not like this is '09 Greinke, where it was Greinke and then literally no one else, you're going to have more opportunities to win, which means you're going to be playing in higher leverage games, which means Cole Reagans is going to be pitching in big playoff type, potential games. It helps the vote. And I wouldn't be shocked if he is able to hang around there the rest of the year. He's shown it. He's proven it. It's 4 starts, but it's everything that you've asked him.
Just thinking about him being the probable starter in a postseason series has just got me so jacked up. It's probably also this delicious drink that I'm partaking of as well. But I am very stoked to see Cole Reagans succeeding at this level again.
Yeah, no, and the further he gets from the TJs and the trade, the more likely it is that this is who he is. And even if he's 90% of what he is right now and what he has been since the trade, that's still a damn good pitcher. And like if the Royals have, let's say, 3 number 2s or 2 number 2s and a number 3 in that rotation, it's still a hell of a lot better than what they've had. Like they haven't had a number 1. They haven't really had a number 2. Like this team, if Alec Marsh is your 5th guy and it's like very comfortably your 5th guy, you're fine. Because no team or very few teams have a 1 through 5 that you're like, oh my God, every single one of these guys is really good. That's just not how this works. Your number 5 guy doesn't have to be that. And it pushes everyone else down the depth chart where Brady Singer is really your number 3 or number 4 instead of having to be that front of the line guy. Cole Reagans has it. He has the makeup. He has the stuff. He has the velocity. Now he's kind of showing it's got to hold up, or at least it has been holding up. And there hasn't been any, minor injury or anything or setback. So it's a very improbable career arc for him, I think, coming back from back-to-back consecutive TJs. But to do it, just insanely impressed. And like every time he does anything media related, it's always fantastic. He just is made up of the right stuff. And there's nothing but good things to say about him. I think. Josh, you have any final Cole Reagans thoughts?
I mean, the trade for Cole Reagans alone probably earns JJ Picollo at least 1 more extension, if not 2. I'll go ahead and say that. I mean, you probably can't credit him with very much then. It's probably not fair to that side of it, but just how much of a slam dunk and how that is an organizational change type of trade. That is a hat hanging trade that you found an ace off the heap. Your coaches spun him into an ace status. And that is exactly what this rotation needed. It is just crazy that it actually happened. And I tweeted something about it like, I would have been ecstatic to have 1 of Bobby Witt Jr. or 1 of Cole Reagans. And somehow this Royals team has both of them at the same time, healthy and just doing it. It's awesome to see.
I hate to bring everybody down. I really do. I promise. But I've got to talk about Kyle Isbell. Man, he has a .234 batting average in 16 games. His expected batting average is .233. The expected numbers are not better than what the actual ones are. He's walking 2% of the time. He's not barreling the ball. He's not hitting the ball hard. 58% of his batted balls are on the ground. The launch angle is 2.1, which is just unfathomable. He's swinging out of the zone more than he ever has by quite a bit. He's trying to pull the ball more than he ever has by a bit, or by a good bit. Career low zone swing percentage. He's making tremendous contact inside the zone. It's like 95%. It's video game-like ridiculous. Outside the zone, 80%. He's making contact with the ball. The contact is just really, really bad. And I noticed pitch-wise, he's struggling against the four-seam fastball and kind of falling back into a pattern that we've seen before, to pretty much the same degree. Last season, he hit .276 against four-seamers. He slugged almost .500. The put-away rate was like 19%. This year, he's hitting .190. He's slugging .190. He's getting put away a third of the time. 2022, he hit .173. He slugged .273, put away a third of the time. The run value is -15. We've seen Kyle Isbell struggle really, really, really bad with the four-seam fastball before. We haven't seen the launch angle issues, the contact quality issues, the plate discipline habits. I'm just saying, man, this particular version may not be who Kyle Isbell is. I shouldn't say this is who he is, but you look at his stats, man. I'm pulling up his Fangraphs page right now. He had a 107 WRC plus in 28 games as a rookie. It was 66, 75, and now 57. Like, he is a very clearly below average hitter. The defense, now on the other hand, he does deserve a ton of credit for that because he's genuinely good at defense, and he was worth, 1.5, 2 wins, whatever it was last season because the defense was really good. Kyle Isbell can be a center fielder on this team. I just don't think if the Royals are serious about contending, he can be the everyday center field option. And I think it's trending towards that. And you have Drew Waters in Omaha hitting .319, crushing the ball, striking out 28.8% of the time, which, again, that's not good. But for Drew Waters, that's a pretty solid number that the Royals would be very thrilled with. I don't think a switch necessarily has to happen right now. I do think that Kyle Isbell deserves a little bit of time. He had an RBI on Monday. He needs some time to figure it out. There could be a timing issue. There could be something that's easily correctable. But if that does happen, Josh, I don't know how much better he can get in terms of the pure production at the plate. When is the trade-off not worth it?
I don't know.
He's useful. He's a useful player to have on a team. Yes.
100%. And I think his defense is always going to make him a positive F4 player. Yeah. I don't know what scenario he becomes a negative F4 player because of that. Maybe an injury or some kind of hampering thing that kind of keeps him from accelerating or something like that. But I'm not a big believer that Drew Waters, what'd you say, 28% K rate in Omaha? Yeah. Translated, that's 30 plus when he gets to the majors, if not worse. He's still making better contact. So when he does, make contact, it's probably going to be better than what Isbell's making contact with. Probably not as good, but still acceptable defense in center field. Dairon Blanco, probably the same way. I think his role as a fourth or fifth outfielder is about where he needs to be. So if that's not the case, you don't believe in Drew Waters, you don't think Kyle Isbell is the answer. What do you do? What do you go? I mean, obviously that's an area that they can improve in. There's not any worthwhile center fielders coming up on the market. So do you go try to make that James Shield level type of trade in the offseason, or do you want to do it at the deadline and go try to get a couple more years of control with a guy that might be available? So it's going to be interesting to see. I'd much rather Kyle Isbell. I'm a Kyle Isbell fan. I would much rather see him succeed in Kansas City. But if he's not the answer, now's the time to figure it out.
Yeah, if he was a league average defender, then I think we're having a very different conversation. He's above that. Because he plays center field so well at Kauffman, they're going to keep him. They're going to keep running him out there, and to me, that's okay because I know that everybody wants to have a 110 WRC plus guy, like a Mike Trout or Julio Rodriguez. Not always the reality, and
there's a trade-off.
There always is, and the Royals have talked about in the past. I remember this being a Dayton Moore quote. I don't know if this is necessarily the philosophy JJ and company have, but the Royals are more often willing to sacrifice some offense if it means you have a plus defender in center field. We have the biggest outfield in baseball. At your home stadium for 81 games a year. Having a defender like Kyle Isbell is valuable. And Drew Waters holds his own in center field too. So this isn't an anti-Drew Waters conversation. But at this point, I'm just cool with rocking with Kyle Isbell for now, unless he gets hurt or it is a complete net negative. With the bat, then sure, bring Drew Waters up and let's see what happens. But what is that at the expense of? Is that, you're getting rid of Isbell? Does that mean you're sending Dairon Blanco down, who has been an absolute weapon for this team late in games? Is completely valuable to this team despite having 5 plate appearances on the year. So that's where it gets really interesting. So I don't know. I will say, and this is kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but if the Royals really are a contention and are serious about it at the, toward the deadline, or hey, we may not have it this year, but we really think we are this year, this next year in 25, your number one draft pick for a significant move is for a center fielder. That's what it has to be if the Royals want to be serious about contending.
College
center. Yeah, draft a college center fielder. You can do that. Yeah, it's either that or it's you're trading. You're like we have a shot to win the division. Let's go get a center fielder.
Yeah.
Or hey, we had a chance to win the division this year. Let's go get a center fielder like for 25. That becomes the conversation.
Yep. 4 very, very quick things just in succession. Boom, boom, boom on the Isbell thing. 1, it's early in the season. 2, there is a significant gap. Not that Drew Waters is a bad defender, but like Joel said, he's more towards average or solid. Kyle Isbell's great. 3, the idea of Drew Waters has always been better than the actual practicality of Drew Waters. And again, like Josh said, it's 28.8 in Omaha. That can change very quickly, and that doesn't mean it's 28.8 strikeout rate for him at the big leagues. So whether Drew Waters is the answer, I don't know. That's to be determined. I don't think Kyle Isbell's the answer, but in case I came off as a hater in that regard, he is definitely a useful player, and I do think that he holds down a damn good center field at the K. We're going to have to speed way the hell up if we're going to cover everything the rest of this pod. I rambled way too much. Let's talk Seth Lugo quickly. 1.05 ERA. The expected ERA is 3.72. The FIP is right around 3. So it's obvious that Seth Lugo's not completely dominant, absolutely game-wrecking level pitcher, but he has yet to allow a home run. He isn't walking many guys. The exit velocity is down from last year. The launch angle is down from last year. The hard hit rate is down. He's in the 9th percentile in K rate, 12th percentile in whiff rate, but 43rd percentile in chase rate, which I found interesting. The barrel rate's a career low for him. He's just pitching to the ground ball. That ground ball rate's the highest since 2020. He's getting a lot of infield fly balls, 11.1%, which is a career high. It's been in the single digits for the past 5-6 seasons. Infield hit percentage, easily the career high. The only things I noticed really with him, the 4-seam fastball's been more effective. He's using it the same amount, but he's getting more spin on it RPM-wise, and he's getting more extension on it. The slider is absolutely thriving, using that 5% more of the time this season. He's getting more spin and extension on that pitch as well. The curveballs largely remain the same in terms of spin, extension. The numbers even have been a little bit less favorable in some regards than they were last season. He's getting a lot less vertical movement to his pitches. The curveball's down, the 4-seamer's down, the slider's down, but the horizontal movement on the curve and the slider are pretty notably on the rise. So you combine all of that word salad, number salad, into a few things. I think the ballpark fits Seth Lugo very well. I think the defense fits Seth Lugo very well. I think he's comfortable in his role and his environment. He can actually get the grip he wants on the effing ball as opposed to pitching down in Surprise, Arizona for spring training. The curveball remains excellent. The 4-seamer has been optimized. The slider has been optimized. He even has a sinker that he'll go to. They've registered like a few pitches as a sweeper, and I'm kind of glad that he stayed away from that revolution. Could just be an error somewhere. I like what Seth Lugo brings to the Royals, and you aren't going to thrive all year posting the 38, 39-year-old Zach Greinke mark of like 4.5 strikeouts per 9. That number's got to come up, and I think will come up, but like that's just not his game. If he can get guys to chase pitches without necessarily putting them away by strikeout, it's a very tightrope-ish type production from him this season. But when you're stringing together those quality starts, some of that's sustainable. And I think that the overall profile is not going to change because that's who he is. And I think that Joel, the Royals are better for it because of that.
He's done exactly what I thought he would do before the season, with raise the floor of the rotation. And he's even up the ceiling a hair, which was something I wasn't quite expecting. And I don't know how sustainable it is, because if you're not striking guys out, it's a little, it's a little concerning, because you got to be able to put guys away at a certain point. You give guys enough opportunities to hit the ball, like you're going to regress to the mean eventually. But even if he does, and he hits a wall and kind of, falls back to earth a little bit from the one, damn near just a flat 1 ERA, if he's a 4.2 ERA guy, that's still a great outcome for the Royals. And that is a fine number 3-4 starter for you. And that, and you can still go out every 5th day with the relative expectation he's going to keep you in the game. And Lord have mercy, that curveball is stupid. He dropped a 3,400 RPM curveball on somebody last night, and I've watched it probably 50,000 times because curveballs are like a really well-thrown curveball is one of my favorite pitches in baseball. And when you spin it like he does, it's amazing.
Brings one word to the rotation: efficiency.
Yes.
Very, very good. I noticed it going into the game yesterday's start. They do like the 3D pitch modeling with all the pitchers' offerings, and it was about the size of a basketball. It was very, very small about the area when it hits the plate, but it just comes in different ways, and he uses it very differently in each. It's just really, really good to see. Is the crafty veteran, the guy who knows how to get outs in an efficient way, is exactly, just a great part of this rotation. Just brings another different element to that rotation. So I love it.
And he talked about that last night. And I want to get the strikeout, but I have Bobby and Michael and all these dudes around here. Like, I'm just going to throw a one pitch sinker, get the ground ball, get out of the inning. Like,
Yep. 100%.
I'll take that all day.
100%.
Yep. Let's do a betting update, or hypothetical / real sometimes bets. Joel's 0-2 to start the year. That's okay. There's plenty of ball left to play. Josh is 1-1. I am 1-1. But Josh and I are coming off of losses this past week. We will begin with Joel, the winless man who I think is going to get a dub this week. You are coming off of a James MacArthur over 1.5 saves bet. He only had one. Still an admirable effort. What do you have this time?
So I have Nelson Velasquez hitting at least one home run over the next week. I think he's due to break back out. I will say, the power hasn't necessarily been there, and I know he's struck out a little more, but you can see there is a more concerted effort to have a more mature approach at the plate, driving the ball the other way and not just getting super pull happy. But I think he has the opportunity. I think he's got to go bridge on somebody. And he loves, for some reason, hitting at Kauffman Stadium. I think he has double-digit home runs since coming to the Royals at Kauffman Stadium. It's going to be pretty nice this weekend. I think he's going to hit one. He's too good to not have another home run, and he's got a week and a half without a home run. That's got to change.
Joshua, you bet under 1.5 quality starts between now and the next time we chat. The Royals turned in 3 because they just refused to pitch poorly in the starting rotation. What is your bounce back effort for this week?
A bounce back effort. The Royals are low key stealing bases here, boys. Last week they stole 10. I think they have 20 on the year. They're averaging about 1.5 stolen bases per game. They have 6 games. So I got a handicap line of 7.5, and I'm taking that over, baby. They went 10 last week. I think they're going to keep running up that score. So give me the over on 7.5 stolen bases. I don't know when to tell you that they're going to do that, but I think for all intents and purposes of this game, I think they go over on that. I do have some other little ones here if I want to sprinkle it in, but only if we have time.
Go ahead, sprinkle it.
I got Alec Marsh and Dean Kramer matching up against the Orioles. I'm taking the Royals over on that. Dean Kramer loves to fill up that strike zone. The Royals love to hit balls in the strike zone, so give me the over and give me the Royals in that. They bring up against Cole Irvin against that Orioles, same series. He's a southpaw, loves to throw the ball in the zone. Give me a Nelson Velasquez home run. Give me that. And then Yusei Kikuchi throws a lot of off-speed. The Royals do not handle off-speed very well. I think he goes in the double-digit in Ks whenever they see the Royals in that series. And the Michael Wacha and Kevin Gausman against the Blue Jays series. Kevin Gausman's on my fantasy team, and he stinks so far. So I'm going to play him, and it's all in sacrifice to the fans of the Royals. So give me the Royals in that game over Kevin Gausman because he stinks. That's what I got.
I had a pitiful effort last week. I said that Will Smith would allow under half a run, meaning not one. He only pitched one time from episode April 17th, or sorry, not the 17th, good grief. April 10th is it published to April 17th as it's going to go up tomorrow. He pitched once and allowed a run. So flopped there. I'm fading Alec Marsh 5.1 innings pitched, which honestly is kind of unfair. He's not known to go 6-7 innings as no pitcher truly does all the time. But I set my arbitrary line at 5.1 innings pitch against Baltimore. He pitched against them on April 2nd, 7 innings. That was easily his best outing of the year. 4.2 in 5 innings and starts since then. Since that game, the Orioles have the number 5 WRC plus at 119 in all of baseball. They're clicking. I like them a lot. I think they're a fantastic team. I don't think Alec Marsh is necessarily going to have a bad game. He could have a solid 5 innings and whatever's going to happen. But I just think that because I set it at 5.1, I will take the under on that and maybe, cheat myself into a loophole of he's still going to throw 5 innings, but still win the bet as well.
Let's say 4 2/3 over under.
I would. I'm still going to take the under, but I am not ruling out a 5 inning start. I just don't think it's going to fare too well. Is the main point. Joel,
I just have one point really quick, and I didn't even realize it that Will Smith only pitched one time, and it was when the game was basically in hand for the Mets, and he still gave up a run.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's interesting that they only threw him out there one time? He didn't even get garbage innings on the Wednesday or Thursday games against Houston. Like I think it's interesting. So let me rephrase that. It's interesting when it shouldn't be, because how often have we seen the Royals sign a guy from free agency, even if it's a 1-year deal, a veteran, just throw him out there anyways? Because
keep putting him out there. Yeah.
And I go back to the Carlos Santana quote from a couple of years ago of, we're paying him to be our first baseman. I kind of thought, seems like that leash is pretty small now. So I just found that interesting, and I'll be curious how he gets used moving forward, because it seems like that leash is tight.
Isn't his velo pretty far down?
Oh, it's down like 2 miles an hour from last year.
So I wonder if it's kind of like that related for the usage is interesting. 100%.
Second half of the year, he was terrible. I didn't know this until this season. I just looked at the season-wide numbers. Okay, he was still fine. He still has plenty left, but that's worth keeping an eye on. And maybe they pull somebody from AAA Omaha as we move to the minor league update to replace him. We're doing a little bit differently this week. You guys are going to each have one player that jumped out to you over the past week or kind of the season so far, and then I'll pick up some pieces from there. We will begin with Josh. What stands out to you from AAA Omaha?
It's absolutely the International Player of the Week, Logan Porter. Joel mentioned he was part of the taxi squad, so we may see him in some major league action, but that would require a 40-man move, right? Because he's not on the 40-man. Does his 20 require?
No, so it does not. So it's just a 1-game thing on a doubleheader. You get an extra guy.
So we could see him tomorrow.
Require a move. Yeah.
Could absolutely see him tomorrow, but last week, 6 of 10, 2 home runs, 1 double, 5 ribbies, 4 walks, and 1 strikeout, and a stolen base. That's not
for him.
Not necessarily Logan Porter's forte by any means, but he did steal a base last week. So shout out Logan Porter. Hopefully, see you tomorrow in Southside.
Joel.
So I'm talking about Nick Prado. I originally had Drew Waters, but we had a lengthy discussion.
Sure.
About him. Nick Prado's still striking out 34% of the time in AAA. The ISO is under 100. He hit a home run tonight, so that's going to bring the weighted runs created plus up from 87. But for a guy that's kind of piddled around AAA in the majors for the last 3 years, I kind of had higher expectations. So I don't think it's as cut and dry of, he's just going to kind of bide time in Omaha, and then it's a for sure thing that he's going to be back up in the big leagues at some point. I don't know if that's the case right now. He's still walking at a good clip, but full concerning.
Yep. We've had a lot of text and DM conversations about Nick Prado. I think that
this week.
Yeah. I think that he makes it back at some point. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out. A guy that I do think also makes it back, Jonathan Bolin, who now is beginning to look like the John Bolin of old. Had a 6-inning start last Tuesday, struck out 10. He pitched again on Sunday, another 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 strikeouts, didn't walk anybody. 16 innings, 16 strikeouts so far this season. He's only walked 3, 14 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 home runs, 2.25 ERA. He's been awesome so far. Some honorable mention guys, CJ Alexander, Brian O'Keefe, Andrew Hoffman, Sam Long, all had different kind of standout performances, and we hope in future weeks when we have more time to cover it, and we don't pack a billion things into a usual 1 hour show that we can break down in more depth. But man, Bolin looks like Bolin, and that's good news for him and good news for Kansas City.
Agreed. I'll never quit John Bolin.
Insane.
Yep. AA Northwest Arkansas, they do have some transactions really quick. Shervin Newton was moved from the 7-day IL to the 60-day IL, which is extremely unfortunate. Rylan Kaufman was moved to the 7-day IL. Doesn't seem to be too big of a deal. And Austin Cox is back from the IL and transferred to AA, coming off it was an ACL tear, right, in early September or late August.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Really good news for him, and it seems like a quick recovery, but then you count the months, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but still nonetheless a very interesting development for a guy that was on the big league team and could, again, find his way back.
Yeah, I think Gavin Cross, it's nice to see him out there, period. It's good to see him back in form. He's still striking out 31.8% of the time. Not ideal, but he did have a good week, 6 of 18, 3 doubles, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So I don't care. As long as he's out on the field getting reps and he's showing out, that's all I care about. So Gavin Cross, please stay in the lineup, please.
Yeah, I just want to see him healthy for a full season. So I'm going to go with Eric Sarantola. And I know that's, he's got, it's been a reliever. He's been in the system for a couple of years. But his last couple of outings, when they faced Amarillo, he went 4 innings, then went 3 1/3. And he's mostly been a 1-inning reliever type guy. He's got 11 strikeouts and 8 1/3. Now he's walked 8, but it seems like maybe they're stretching him out to start moving forward. And so that kind of changes the math on how I view him as a prospect. So it could be interesting to follow and see if they continue to set him out for 3 or 4 innings.
I've got Beck Way. He pitched 3 innings, 4 strikeouts, 1 hit by pitch in relief recently. He's just been better and kind of a guy, I don't want to use the word afterthought as the main descriptor, but people kind of forgot about him a little bit and said, okay, well, maybe he's just going to fade off into the sunset. He's looked solid so far this year. In addition to Peyton Wilson's been on a tear, Noah Cameron had a really good outing. The Royals have had some guys play well in AA, and they've had a ton that are worth mentioning in high A Quad Cities. And I'm going to kick it off here with Frank Mazzucato. Season debut on Sunday, 4 innings, 1 hit, 4 strikeouts, and 3 walks. I believe it was Preston Farr at Farm to Fountains that had a pretty good breakdown and some details on that start and kind of the technology that they're using to try to get more optimized kind of force transition and biomechanics with him. The velo eventually would ideally for the Royals be the byproduct of that and trend up. So Frank, they needed to, frankly, but see what I did there?
Yep.
I hate myself. But yeah, Frank Mazzucato pitched well, and Joel, please save me.
I was talking about Hunter Owen, who the Royals drafted out of Vanderbilt this past year. Got 1 start, made his debut. 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, no walks, which is a welcome sign in this organization. He kind of fits one of my scouting biases, that is a lefty with good pitchability and a plus breaking ball. That's everything I love in a pitcher for the most part. So he kind of fits that bill, but a guy that I think has a super high floor. I think he ends up in the back end of a big league rotation at some point, and I don't think he's long for Quad Cities. I think he'll be in Northwest Arkansas very, very quickly because of how polished of a pitcher he is. He's just going to bully dudes in high A.
Yeah, another guy that I don't think is long for Quad Cities is my guy, Carter Jensen. I'm planting my flag that Carter Jensen is my guy. Last week, 7-17, 1 home run, 1 triple, 1 double, 4 ribbies, 5 walks, 4 strikeouts, and 1 stolen base as well. We're just 9 games into the season, but he is slashing 306, 405, and 500 in the Quad Cities. It's very, very fun to see. Still not 21 years old yet. If all things go correctly, we could see him in Omaha by the end of the year, and that would be very, very fun. That would be things would have to go really, really well for that to happen, but he's got the discipline, he's got the power, he's got the profile to be fast-tracked. So I think that's not out of the realm of possibilities, but just good to see Carter Jensen doing work.
Yep. More honorable mentions for Quad Cities. Jared Dickey, Ben Kuderna, Henry Williams, and Steven Zobak all had really good performances over the past week. And Columbia, they've kind of been tearing it up since the last time we talked. 5-1 since the last recording, entering Tuesday. Endless mentions. I'm just going to name those off the top. Johnny Perdomo, Brennan McNair, Eric Torres, Eric Pena, who is
hello.
well, and around, yeah. Hunter Patson and Jacob Widener, all varying levels of performance. Even Pena had a 36.1 strikeout rate so far this season, but the WRC plus higher than it's ever been by a large margin. Let's go back to Joel. Who is your standout player you want to highlight real quick?
So I want to talk about Blake Mitchell, first round pick.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
So listen, like I've made my opinion about the pick known, but I'm not going to knock the dude too early because he's 18 years old in his first go round of Pro Bowl.
What's done is done. Let bygones be bygones.
So slashing a $194, 390, 387, 134 weighted runs created plus. He's striking out 37% of the time, but he's walking 22%. Today he went 1 for 2 with 3 walks. So it is very Carter Jensen-ish in like the knowledge of the strike zone. And I will say, like, if he can get the strikeout stuff figured out, that swing and that power is effortless. Yep. He hit his first home run, and I was like, damn, okay. Yep. Like, there's a lot there. This is very, very unrefined clay, but that power is something to dream on. And, like, I saw the swing, and I was like, okay, I willing to see a little bit here. There we go.
Josh, what you got?
A guy that's probably going to make me eat crow before it's all said and done is Austin Charles. Drafted kind of a two-way player, but he's been playing shortstop and third base primarily. Last week he went 10 for 21 with a homer, 2 doubles, 10 ribbies, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts, but 6 stolen bases as well. That is ridiculous. I had to triple check that just to make sure my filters were correctly, and they were. 6 stolen bases last week, as many stolen bases as strikeouts. So very impressive from Austin Charles. He is he is a very big athlete, very big, I should say. I think he's like 6'6". I think he's very, very tall. Dude. Yeah. So it's very good to see him getting off. A lot of ranking sites really like him. So really like to see him put together some quality seasons here.
I've got Derlin Figueroa, who was brought over in the Ryan Yarbrough trade. Since the last time we recorded, 7 RBIs. We recorded last Tuesday, so an RBI for every day. He's slashing 324, 385, 471, 143 WRC plus. He has looked great. So that is kind of some tips of the cap, or celebratory toast, so to say, to some of those guys. And I'm just going to bring it in. We are doing a toast game on our way out of here. 2 different people. I'm going to kick it off. I'm actually just going to take it here. I don't have anything poured out. I'm giving a whole ass bottle here of Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond soft red wheat to Vinny Pasquantino, who has 10 hits since last recording, 385 WRC plus this season. WRC plus, as Joel said, is up to 131, 94th percentile outs above average, 90th percentile fielding run value. There's nothing really to say now at the end of this pod that hasn't already been said, but man, Vinny Pasquantino's been so freaking good, and reminding people that he's the hitter that just about everyone thought he was going to be coming into the year.
My toast game is going to Alex Zumwalt and company. These hitting coaches really know what they're doing, I think, at this, and it's really starting to click. And it seems like they have a concerted effort to elevate the ball, which is awesome. They have the second highest average launch angle in the fly ball rate in the majors, so that's really nice. But also the big key to how this offense has been faring for the year is hitting with runners in scoring position. Is a big focus in the offseason and is actually paying off pretty well. They're 12th in the majors in OPS with runners in scoring position at 794, which is very, very fun. They have 6 hitters with an OPS of over 700 runners in scoring position. And that does not include Michael Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino, who we have both said that we are not nervous about in the slightest. So they're 11th in runs per game versus 23rd last year, largely because of the runners in scoring position. and the focus of elevating the ball. So cheers to Alex Zumwalt and company.
I'll have a little bit of bourbon for the next podcast, but my toast game is to James MacArthur, who has taken over the closer's role and looks just as comfy there as he did at the end of last season, just shutting the door on people. He's got 4 pitches to go. The fastball has actually ticked up a little bit since he's moved into that closer role. It was like 92 to 93 earlier in the year. It's like 95, 96 now. The curveball is obviously electric. The Royals, you have your closer in Kansas City. You have a comfortable guy. You have a guy that you feel comfortable with when he comes out for the 9th inning. It's a welcome sight. It's helpful for a team that, if they want to be competitive, having a guy that you're very comfortable with, it matters. So shout out to him, and I'll call it now. I think he's going to be an all-star this year.
I feel comfortable with you guys. We will talk to you next week.